So thank you for joining us, everybody. This is the October Community of Practice meeting. We did, as you know, move the scheduled date, the scheduled Monday, back a week because of Indigenous Peoples Day, and hopefully people had either the day off or acknowledged and memorialized the Indigenous Peoples Day in some way. So this is the third, I think today is the third Monday. Generally, we have our meetings, if you're new, generally we have our meetings on the second Monday of the month. So, okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Tonight's topic, as you know, is on fundraising. So we're going to have some communities hopefully sharing about fundraising. We've got some things to say. But before we get into that, I just want to take a moment to welcome any newcomers and invite anybody who's here for either the first or second time, or if you'd just like to introduce yourself again, you're encouraged to do so. So we'd love to get to know you if you're not a regular member here on the Community of Practice. So anybody who'd like to introduce themselves, we'd love to hear from you. Yeah, Tiana.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tiana. I chair the Wakefield Environmental Sustainability Committee, and we've connected with MassEnergize a couple times and probably met some of you, but happy to be here. Love to learn from other folks who are doing this work in other communities.
Thank you, Tiana, and welcome. Yes, Deborah.
Hi, Deborah Garberick, and I am on the Sustainable Medfield committee with Megan, and I'm really interested in the fundraising aspect.
Terrific. Thank you and welcome, Deborah. Anybody else want to introduce themselves?
Hi, everyone. This is Stephen Bodkin. I am here with my colleague Rick from Pelham, Massachusetts, where we're a small group that is starting to think about how to make a difference in our community.
Terrific. Well, thank you, Stephen, and I love the hat. Is it cold where you are? Are you outdoors?
I'm in a small cabin in the woods behind my house.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. Well, thank you for joining us. And Stephen and Rick, both of you, welcome. So glad to have you here. Anybody else like to introduce themselves? Okay. Oh, looks like somebody else is just joining us. Great. Well, thank you. As always, it's a pleasure to have folks here. And this really is a place, as those of you who are regulars here know, this is a place where sometimes we have speakers presenting on certain topics, and other times we really just have it an open sharing. So tonight, we did, in fact, invite somebody who is a kind of more a fundraising specialist, but they were unfortunately not able to make it. So we do have a few things to say and share about fundraising, but really this is going to be a chance to hear from each other. As I am talking to kind of new communities in particular, people often ask, Nathan, how do communities fund themselves? How do you raise the money, or who pays the bills, or any number of other kind of funding related questions. And so we thought that this would be a good time because, as those of you who are with nonprofit organizations know, this season is, quote, fundraising season. In fact, there's some statistic, and I don't know it off the top of my head, but I think it's 2/3 of all donations made to organizations are made in the last 3 months of the year. And some crazy amount like 17% or something like that of all donations are made in the last 3 days of the year. Now, I don't know the exact percentages. I was kind of making those up based on a memory. And I'm happy to get those to you. But the fall season is kind of it for many nonprofits, including MassEnergize, is fundraising season. So we thought this would be a good time, a timely topic. So we do have some things to share, but what we're going to do, I think, to start with is just to get a read of the room and to get a read of the organizations here. We have a poll, And so what we're going to do is we're going to ask several questions just about how you fundraise and what you fundraise for and that sort of thing. And we'll go through the poll together. I mean, we'll go through, fill out the poll, but then we'll all collectively look at the results. And I'd love to have kind of a conversation just about the results. And, you know, hearing from those of you who would like to, sharing kind of why you answered, why or how you answered the way, you know, you chose to answer the way you did. So hopefully that'll stimulate some conversation, and then we'll go on to further sharing from there. So Joe, can we start the poll? Actually, just hang on a second, Joe.
Yeah.
Somebody's just joining, another person.
Okay, yeah.
So, okay, looks like, yeah, KJ has just joined us. So, okay, let's go ahead and we're going to start the poll.
Okay, so hopefully this will launch the poll for everybody.
Okay. So if you have a chance, go ahead and, yeah, just go ahead and start responding. There we go. And I'm not even certain. Is everybody seeing all of the questions, or are you just seeing one question at a time? You're able to see all of them?
Yeah.
Okay, okay. Because I'm just seeing one. And maybe if you are finished completing the poll, maybe just raise your hand in the, you know, on the screen or something, just so I know kind of who's finished going through it and who still needs some more time. Okay. Yeah, there's a little function. Yeah, that's great. If you just raise your hand, that kind of lets me know that you've completed it. And again, those of you who are still working on it, no pressure. Just take your time. We'll give you another several minutes. Okay, and so here's a question that, oh yeah, no, I do see an answer to that. My question was going to be, even if your camera is not on, can you still raise your hand? And yes, it does appear that you can. So. Okay, so question, Ellen, KJ, Susan, are you still working on it? I can't tell for sure. Okay, so it's all okay, Ellen. Yeah, I see your thumbs up. Looks like you're done. Okay.
If you hold your thumb up, eventually it might see it and put your thumb up.
Okay, Deborah, are you still working on it?
No, I'm all set.
You're all set. Okay. Susan and KJ, are you still working or are you done? Okay, looks like, yeah. Okay, so I think most people are done. So we'll close this. Yeah, it looks like, okay, so we're going to end the poll, and hopefully if all goes well, we'll see the results. So here we go. And we're going to share the results. Okay. So if I understand this correctly, I'm hoping that I see all the correct results as well. So let's kind of go through this collectively. So the first question, how is your community organization funded? It looks like self-funded is the highest percentage. And then we have people who do fundraising and get donations. And then third looks to be the town or municipal budget. So I'd love to hear from those of you who are self-funded, kind of how do you go about doing that? What means do you do to raise funds? What are your self-funding mechanisms? Anybody? And maybe, okay, now I see a few questions, a few hands up. I'm not sure if you're wanting to share or if you're still letting me know you've completed the poll, but Tiana, are you self-funded, and can you tell us what you do to?
Oh, no, sorry. I just hadn't lowered my
Oh,
hand.
okay. Okay.
No, we're
Anybody
we're town budget.
Okay. Anybody who's self-funded, can you tell us a little bit about what you do? Yes, Karen.
So our situation is a bit unique that the town sustainability office pays the platform fee. But because we're technically sponsored by the town, we are not allowed to do any fundraising. We're not allowed to ask for donations as Energize Acton. However, we are also beyond the platform fee, we are not in the town sustainability budget either. So basically, two of us on the committee pay whatever expenses come up. I mean, the sustainability office will print flyers. You know, if we have a flyer, they'll run them off for us. But you know, if we, like every year, we do a program where we sponsor a speaker with the Garden Club and the Acton Conservation Trust, and one of us just pitches in the money personally. So it's a bit challenging.
Okay. Well, and we will get to kind of mechanisms for raising money, but right now I'm just interested in kind of what maybe some of the challenges that people face in terms of meeting their budgets, or if they're having to do it themselves. Anybody else who's self-funded? Do you want to share kind of either how you do it or the challenges involved in being self-funded? Yes, Rob.
Yeah, we get a grant from the town. We're not in the town budget, but we're applying for a grant from the town, which they have special money for special occasions because of the marathon that goes through town. And then we do also do some fundraising from the local banks. So that's about what we do. We just started this year, so we haven't really done any expensive events yet. So, but that's what we've been doing.
Okay. And then David Rittenhouse, how are you're self-funded, and how do you do that?
So originally we funded the $2,000 initial fee by having 20 $100 donors for the first year. And I've just been paying it since then.
Okay. Well, that sounds like that puts a burden on you. So maybe not so sustainable, but has worked so far. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, we did go in front of the town council seeking funding, and it didn't go very far.
Okay. Well, how about those of you who get the municipal into the town or municipal budget? I guess the question, I mean, that sounds ideal. The question I would have is, what do you need to do to be added as a line item into the town or municipal budget? So anybody who is a town that covers your fees, what do you need to do to make that happen?
What?
Anybody who answered that you're in the town or municipal budget? Brad?
Yeah, we Our climate committee operates the website, and mostly me, but and the town's been happy to pay for it the last couple of years. We were self-funded to begin with. But
Do you have to petition the town, or
No.
what enabled you to get the town to write the check?
we asked the sustainability director, and it fell within his budget.
Okay. And Ellen, what do you folks do in Harvard? I don't remember if you're town funded or not.
We're a bit of both. So Green Communities paid the first year for MassEnergize, and then we asked for a budget. But we're probably everything. Like Karen said, we've put our own personal money in, then we also put in, we had some grant dollars that covered some things. The town gives us not a lot, doesn't cover that much. So we're kind of everything. And I, like Karen, because we're a town committee, we can't fundraise. So, no different in Acton than it is in Harvard. We're kind of in the same boat. So we kind of piece the things together. It's not easy. Like when MassEnergize went up, I kind of had to rejuggle my budget. My budget's been flat. I mean, they don't want us to increase it. So whatever they give us, that's it.
Right. Yeah. Okay. And then how about who gets grants? It looks like a couple of people responded that they get grants. I'm curious, like, who do you get the grants from to help pay for that? Anybody who responded that you get a grant? Yeah, Susan.
Yeah, we're very lucky. I mean, the towns I work in are part of the Mass Save Community First Partnership. So that comes with the grant. It's never enough, but I also got an Empower grant to supplement it. And then we're lucky, Energy Save, to have a funder. So we have some core money that we can draw on. So we're in a very lucky position.
Got it. Okay, thank you. Yes, Ellen, do you want to add something?
Yeah, I'll just add. So we did get some MVP funding that did help with some of our website, but that was in regards to the work we were doing on some bylaws in which they gave us money. We've also sometimes smaller grant organizations that are more local will sometimes give you some funding if it's a specific project. So when we did our flag project around town, we got money from a very small foundation, and it was enough to at least cover the cost of the materials. Didn't cover anything else, but at least covered that. So there are some smaller organizations, not always that easy though.
Yeah. Okay, well, I think we'll move on in these questions, but I will just mention one thing is that at the end of this, we're going to give you a resource that we've put together. It's not a comprehensive resource, but it is some suggestions and ideas. And there is a section on some possible grant ideas. And the New England Grassroots Fund is one organization that some of our communities have successfully gotten a small grant to pay for the fees for. So, and that's listed in the resource that'll pass to you. But that's just one. That's one's local foundation that does give out small grants. $1,000-$2,000 grants to help with these kinds of fees. So. Okay, so the second question in the poll was more specifically, how do you fund MassEnergize services? We realize that, funding our services takes effort on your part, and we don't want to, make light of that. We do realize that that can be a heavier lift. I guess in this case, was there any different funding source from your general operating funds? Do you or can you pay for the MassEnergize services in any different way? Or is it consistent with how you raise funds with the organization? So any differences in terms of the responding to this question? It looks like the percentages are about the same. So I'm guessing that there isn't another mechanism. So. Is that right? Okay, that looks like people are acknowledging that. I did want to ask one other question. One or two people, I guess one person mentioned that they answered other, not any of the, not the budget, grants, fundraising, memberships. What, if you don't mind sharing, who had another mechanism for raising funds or paying for community initiatives? Was there a different one that we should know about?
It might have been me, but I think it was because maybe it didn't mention the township on there, which pays the platform fee.
Got it. Okay. So we'll keep going. I'm on. Can people still see the poll, or is it's no longer? Okay. Well, you know what I could do is I could probably share my screen, and we could look at these together. So why don't I'll
We
do
can
that.
see it. Yes.
You can see it.
Oh, you can? Okay. All right. So question number 3 is, how much does your community spend annually on climate action initiatives? And actually, I don't, well, here, let me see if I can see the details here. Yeah, I'm not seeing that. So I think we're going to skip that question for now. Okay. So question, what would you like to secure funding for in relation to climate action efforts? And the answers I see were, there's mini campaigns, larger campaigns, events, workshops. So it looks like the mini campaigns and the events workshops are the things that you would most want to raise money for. Can you tell me, how successful have people been in being able to pull off these mini campaigns using the funds? Is it that you would like to run campaigns beyond what you have the means to do right now? I'm just curious, what are the things that you would most want to spend money on, but maybe you don't necessarily have that money, and so that's something you would be fundraising for. Does anybody want to say, offer any comments? Yeah, Megan.
I could just mention that when we are running campaigns, we often like to have a movie to go along with it. And if you show a movie, it can be expensive because you have to pay the licensing fee. And then maybe you're also renting a space. So I'd say that's one of the big one-off kind of expenses that we have.
Okay. Yeah, Marissa.
Sure, I'm with Energize Franklin. I mean, we haven't really had the opportunity because of the way our funding has worked so far to really do any events, but we've talked about the idea of we'd really like to do some sort of lawn sign initiative since that was pretty successful in other communities. Or I'd really like the opportunity to do some sort of workshop, but I would also want to be able to offer people if we're going to have someone come in and talk on an issue, I'd like for them to be compensated for their time potentially, if they're giving up part of their day to come and do that. I just think that would be a nice way to make that happen. But the lawn sign thing we've talked more about in part because I know it's been fairly successful in driving engagement in other communities.
Yeah. Has anybody else had good success with kind of what Marissa's talking about in terms of raising money for lawn signs, etc.? This is, again, just an opportunity to kind of learn what other people are doing, and if you have tips or suggestions, would love to hear them. Okay. If not, thank you. So yeah, Karen. So Marissa, I unfortunately don't have any specific suggestions to offer, but realize that it's really hard to do even some of the smaller things. Sometimes you can get budgets for larger projects, but some of the smaller things, you end up having to cover yourself or otherwise, and that can be difficult. So yeah, Karen, do you want to share what you've used or wanted to have funding for to do?
I think we've done a lot of it without a lot of funding, but because we've had speakers who don't charge us at all, like from Heat Smart Alliance, and they're really helpful programs, but sometimes it would be nice to do something a bit bigger. Like recently, Jamie Eldridge, our state senator, sponsored or moderated a panel in Acton on housing issues in Massachusetts. And it would be great. I think he would love to do something like that on climate too. And maybe bring in perspectives from different communities. We have a very diverse community here, and but we don't have the money to pay people to come in and do that. We'd have to patch it together and ask for volunteer speakers, and movies too. I mean, it would be nice to have movies more often, but that's $200 a pop, and then just to do it online. And then if you want a space, that's another $200. And if it's just coming out of people's pockets, that adds up pretty fast. And the other thing that I think would be really great is that, like, sometimes our campaigns would like to focus on a particular neighborhood. Like if we're doing something on heat pumps, we want to focus on the neighborhoods that are basically supplied oil, they have oil heat. And it would be great to hire a couple volunteers to do some door-to-door, because I think, like, if you're doing a support for a particular neighborhood, that door-to-door interaction makes a huge difference. So those are just a few ideas of what funding could be good for.
Sure. Okay, good. Yeah, Brad.
Yeah, how do I put that? We're pretty fortunate in Concord to be fairly well funded, and a lot of that is through our municipal utility on getting people to do heat pumps and stuff. So whereas Mass Save program is funded by the whole state, our local efforts are funded through the utility. But I'm wanting to raise some money to get a consultant to work on kind of a longer term initiative, like involving district geothermal stuff. That's my new interest, and I'd be interested to talk to any other communities that are thinking about that. I know they're thinking about it in Acton, but I kind of see that as really key in the next couple of decades in order to be successful.
Yeah, and I'll just add. So yeah, go ahead, Karen.
No, I just wanted to add that, Brad, I saw that you guys, when you did your house tours back in the spring, I guess it was, you had nice big ads in the Concord Bridge. I mean, I would love some money for ads.
Yeah. So one resource that I do want to share with people that you may or may not be familiar with, this is more in terms of personnel. There is oftentimes funding to cover people's costs. And oftentimes perhaps a little harder funding to actually purchase, banners and that sort of thing. But the Massachusetts Clean Energy Center offers an internship program, and it's quite good. And you can find, and again, this is a resource that we can share with you, but it is a program where the Massachusetts Clean Energy Center will place and pay for college, mostly college, or immediately the year after college. They support 1 year after college, but they're mostly college students to be interns, either for a spring or fall semester or over the summer. And we at MassEnergize use them quite regularly. And I know several other communities within kind of the network. Lexington has used them, and I think a few other communities have used them. So if you're ever looking for something that an intern could help you with, that is a good source. And then another source which is a little different, is the Mass Save community education grants. And they are also, they're a little bit more targeted to supporting and promoting the Mass Save programs. But if you need people to work on energy efficiency or other related things to what Mass Save does, the Mass Save Community Education Grant is another good source. Again, it's not a lot of money. The Mass Save Community Education Grant is $25,000, but the internships, those are completely 100% covered by the Mass Clean Energy Center. So those are good sources of money to cover people's costs, but not material purchases. Yeah, Rob.
So I get the idea when I listen to this that a lot of these energized communities really don't have much money, and they're in the same boat. You know, they're trying to get some personal money involved and get a little money from the town. Some of them are more lucky than other towns. So my question really is to you. So since our major money goes to Mass Save, maybe Mass Save can get more bigger grants and make the cost of the platform lower. What you think about that? That
Yeah,
would
no.
give us some money for the various communities.
Sure. Yes, well, so thank you, Robin. I think you were referring to MassEnergize, not Mass Save in that instance.
MassEnergize, yeah, MassEnergize.
Yeah, no, so certainly we, just to be fully transparent with everybody, we do what we can to raise money. The software and the support that we offer you, I can assure you, costs many more times, orders of magnitude higher than the fees that we charge. However, we would love to be able to even further subsidize. We do apply for funds, but as you know, we are also a small nonprofit and don't have access to the kinds of large grants. Though over time, that is something that we've been wanting to do. And one of the ideas that we've had is to actually raise money to offer kind of mini grants to organizations that we would actually distribute. We have not successfully not successfully found a source of funding for that, but that is an idea that we've had. And we do realize that, the cost of our fees is a burden to many communities. And so we're doing what we can, and we will continue to do what we can. But unfortunately, we don't have the kinds of funding or access to the large funds. But hopefully that will change in time. Brad, do you want to comment any further on that?
No, not what we're trying to fund now is more consistent support for communities. And Talia's not on the call, but we recently hired a community support person plus a program support person who is on the call. Has Fabiani been introduced on the call?
She was, I believe, the first time. So
good. The rest of what Nathan talked about in terms of supporting the platform development, we have a programming team based mostly in Ghana that is working on the platform. I wouldn't describe it as orders of magnitude more, but we're still a fairly small network that doesn't pay for the software, the development costs yet, and we're trying to grow our way out of that.
Well, the other problem is that many of these organizations are not 501c3, so they can only do limited fundraising and asking for grants, right? So we can get a grant from our town because they know what we're going to do, but we can't really apply for any more substantial grant if we wanted to do anything. So you're not recommending actually that we become a 501c3, but you guys are a 501c3. So in theory, you can maybe get more grants from larger organizations.
Yes, Rob. I mean, that is so. Yes, we are 501c3, and I guess maybe we didn't ask how many of the organizations you're affiliated with are 501c3. I don't think there's too many, but there are a few. And you're right, Rob, that 501c3s do have easier access to grant funding. But there's many more organizations competing for those limited funds. But yeah, Megan, were you going to share something?
I'm going to say two things. One is, Rob, there are organizations that they're called fiscal sponsors, where you can become affiliated with one of these organizations, and they basically run the 501c3 for you, so that you can be they're an umbrella, and you can become part of their organization so that you could accept donations. And they usually take a small fee for running that for you, maybe 1% of your revenue. And then another thing just to point out is Nathan had mentioned the Grassroots Fund. And one of the nice things about the Grassroots Fund is that they don't require you to be a 501c3 to receive their funds.
Yeah, yeah. So, okay. Thank you. There's a couple more questions in this poll, and then we're going to just open it up for some kind of general sharing. So I'm on question number 6. How important is town funding to the success of your climate initiatives? And it looks like many of you, majority of people said it's not necessary, but then the second largest group said it's critical. So curious about the relationship to towns. Some of you, I think, represent your towns. In other cases, you're an ad hoc group that's not directly representative of your towns. But I mean, I guess I'd love to hear some thoughts just in terms of how your relationship as a community organization is with your town in relation to your ability to be funded, to be supported. Is that something that's really important to you? Is that something, does it have challenges? What are the benefits? What are some of the pros and cons of relying on kind of the municipality for either approval of activities and or funding? Yeah, Tiana.
Yeah, so we're an official town committee, and as such, we get some funding from our town government. It's small though, and we haven't actually used it yet to purchase MassEnergize services. I think it would not be enough. So we would need to ask the town for more if we wanted to actually go down that route. And I hope we will at some point. So we have a small budget from the town, which is enough for, we bring in a speaker occasionally or snacks at an event. Or supplies for activities, but it doesn't go very far. But because we're a town committee, I don't think we can raise funds through other fundraising means. We can go in with, or we can help other members of our community in applying for grants. We help our DPW or our gas and light department or things like that, but it does limit us in sort of where else we can get funds. And I think in our case, the negatives around then also having to follow all of the open meeting law restrictions and posting our agendas and having our minutes approved, like all of the open meeting stuff, in my personal opinion, is not worth the $2,000 of budget that we get for activities and the things. So very curious other folks' experiences of that, but we're certainly having the conversations of, would we be better off if we were just on our own as an organization, could raise some funds and not be sort of in that bucket.
Yeah, thank you, Tiana. And I'd love to hear from other people. Like, what are some of the pros and cons of the relationship to the town and the municipal budget? So yeah, Ellen.
So I think it's like two different things. There's the issue of holding events, educating the public, and having the money to do that, all the things that everybody's been mentioning. But the other part of it that I struggle with is some towns, Acton being one, and I think Concord and others, they have sustainability managers who do the work that my committee now does. So my committee has to write the grants. My committee has to oversee the grants, administer the grants. And so we've done some things on bylaws, which is something our committee can't do because we don't have the expertise to research all these bylaws and bring it back to town. I mean, we just did it with Specialized, but we had some help from DOER. But I think that's where I see kind of two avenues. One is, yes, the events and the education, but the other avenue is actually getting something done on the climate side. So if you don't have a sustainability manager or somebody in climate in your government, then you're really not getting as far as you want to get. And that's where I feel our town is lacking money, because they won't put a staff person in, and then we have to do it. And that's not always so easy.
Yeah, and this comment is not directly the same as what you were saying, Ellen, but it reminds me that there was an article that actually Jillian from Natick wrote that it was, I believe it was in the Globe, I think, kind of an opinion piece about why towns should hire sustainability coordinators, because they are then in a position to apply for funding. And, you know, the data shows that the staffing of a sustainability coordinator invariably pays for itself in terms of monies that they're able to get. Now, I don't know if that's all your experience, but Jillian cited any number of organizations or any number of positions that, you know, when you hire somebody, then this is at the town level. This is not so much decisions that you are all able to make. Would you say that, does that bear out? Ellen, I saw you nodding. Do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, we've tried to convince the town of that, but it's not easy to convince them. I mean, we try to say that it'll help us bring in more grant money, which will cover a lot of things the town wants to do. And it's not happening. And now we've had such a change in our government, from new town administrator, new assistant administrator, new DPW, new planner, I mean, it's, you know, nobody's really stepping up. So we're, you know, I'm spending a lot of time trying to educate the new people that come to town. So it's not easy. But then I also know, you know, smaller towns, like, isn't Pelham on here? Yeah, I mean, they probably have it even less so than we do. I mean, small towns, it's really tough. And then for the grants we've gotten, I've had conversations over and over again at the state level about rural communities are different than non-rural communities. Maybe it makes sense where the population is to put your money. I get that. But don't expect the rural communities to meet the 250 goals if we don't really have the support. I mean, I find that's, you know, I've had these conversations multiple times. And it's okay, as long as they tell me to my face, well, yeah, it is more important to do the Cambridges and Somervilles and Bostons and the Worcesters than it is to do, you know, the smaller towns. And that's hard.
Right. Yeah. Okay, yes, Rob. You're muted, Rob.
Yeah, I think Ashland's relatively lucky. We have a sustainability manager who does write grants, and she's got different programs going. And I'm not sure if she pays for herself, but she's doing pretty well. We also have a sustainability committee who is on the policy side and then works on bylaws and policies and things like that. And then we have Energize Ashland, which is a all volunteers group who has to take care of their own budgeting and get their own money. And, you know, and we're struggling a little bit here and there to try to get, you know, people to sign up and get more known in the town. But we have all three different options in Ashland.
Okay, good. Good. Okay, well, thank you. Marissa.
Sorry, there we go. We don't necessarily get any funding from the town, but I know Dave mentioned originally that was something that we had pursued. But I also know that, like, even for Franklin, for things like a sustainability director might help us with achieving that. And we know that there are folks in town management who are supportive of the idea of adding that. But, you know, the town recently didn't pass a budget override, you know, and even if with the logic of for the position paying itself back, it's hard to say add this in when you have a budget cut that cuts, like, I think it was like 40 teachers or something like that. You know, like maybe it wasn't quite that many, but that's what I remember being bandied about. Like, that's a pretty big hurdle to overcome, and maybe that will happen in the future. I know people still want to work towards having that sustainability director position, but I do think, you know, even if the position pays for itself, there can be some challenges in implementation.
Sure. Yeah, Susan, do you want to share something?
Yeah, it's not my personal experience, but my observation within the Community First Partnership communities, like there's 50 communities across the state, and some of them are run by people in the town office, and the sustainability coordinator or whatever their role is runs the CFP program. And while it's great, there are certain consequences that come of that I think people should be aware of in wanting to be going through the town office. Because once a program is run through a town office, if you say you want to partner with a contractor, a home performance contractor to do all your audits in the town, or a heat pump contractor, there has to be a whole bidding process through this, through the towns. And that can take a lot of time and energy. Whereas I do the CFP program independently as a community-based organization, and I can just make partnerships where I want. So while there'll be pros for partnering with the city, pay attention to what burdens come with that. I just wanted to bring that up because it's been a real challenge for some communities that think they have a real asset in the town, but every time they want to do something, it's another round of approvals and permissions and stuff. So just bring that up.
Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, Susan. So, okay, looks like Alex, you've got your hand up.
Yes, and sorry, I'm off video because I'm in my car this evening. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Yeah, so just along the lines of the last comment, I chair the Climate Action Planning Committee in Milton, and when the committee formed last year, the town had already contracted with some consulting services to do a greenhouse gas inventory, but the scope was kind of locked in. We had limited opportunities to influence their work because of the timing. But one thing I learned later was that they had secured a grant for $50,000 to go out and procure consulting services, but because the total cost of services was between $10,000 and $50,000, they're actually required to solicit 3 bids and take the lowest one, like no matter who it came from. And so, we ended up working with a materially less qualified group than I think they had originally been intending to do the work with because of this requirement. And so I just wanted to share that as an example. And it's also got me thinking, we're lucky in Milton to have a 501c3 community organization, Sustainable Milton, and we have our official town committee. I think the overhead of the open meeting law has been worth the sort of visibility and officialness that comes with it, because we've recruited 10 new people to get involved through the climate committee that Sustainable Milton's been there for 15 years, and we didn't find them that way. But I do wonder, would it be easier to fund some of what we need to get done through Sustainable Milton, because there would be fewer hoops to jump through. But I like, if we wanted to go out and contract for consulting services to accelerate our climate action planning, is that something that we can do as a 501c3? Donate the money to a town committee, or are there hoops there too? It's kind of the questions I have.
Yeah, does anybody have a response? So Alex, could you just rephrase your last question? Because I'm not sure that I got.
So the town of Milton has a climate action planning committee, and we need to write a climate action plan. We've been trying to do it without consulting support for a year, and I've decided it's not going to happen at this rate. So we need to do it. But I'm anxious about all the rules that apply when you apply for grants as the town, and specifically, I don't want to have to push the total cost over $50,000 just to avoid this strange rule that you have to take the lowest bid regardless of quality. Can you apply for a grant or just solicit donations to a 501c3 and then use it to fund consulting services?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So look, yes, no, thank you. Thanks for clarifying, Alex. Yeah, Brad, do you have a response?
Yeah,
I also got a thought.
I'm just a comment to Alex's point, and I'm I'm not very good at this, but in hiring a consultant, it really depends on how the RFP looks, right? Is it that you want an RFP to weed out any unqualified people by just by the language that's in there? I think that's key.
Yeah, I think part of it is anxiety that I've never written an RFP. It would be a totally new process, and if I can avoid learning that process, that would be great.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
I know Ellen Tone has written a
Yes,
lot.
there's so Alex, I'm sure in this community there are, well, I know that there are people who've, put together RFPs, written RFPs, so I'm sure you could get some help. I mean, my sense is that yes, I mean, if you went through the nonprofit, if you went through the 501c3 and not through the town, then you are no longer bound by those town stipulations.
But you still want to write an RFP.
Yes, correct.
You want to make sure you get what you ask for. And consultants, you get what you pay for and what you manage. So
yeah,
it's I'm a novice with RFPs as well. Maybe we should talk about it, Alex.
Absolutely. Look, anybody who's in the same boat, let's get together and chat about it from time to time.
Yeah. Thank you, Alex. Okay, does anybody else have anything else they want to add or ask?
About
I'll just say yes. Yeah, go ahead, Megan.
About fundraising in general?
Well, yeah, I mean, I just in terms of the topics we have, I mean, we do have one last question that, just again, not that we have to follow each one, but one of the things that I see is what do you find most challenging about securing funding? And the number one challenge appears to be kind of lack of volunteers. So once again, I hear that many of you are, your committees are short-staffed, you are short-staffed, the sustainability office is short-staffed. And so it really would be helpful to have the ability to have more people. And, obviously lack of volunteer support is also lack of just is additional personnel support. Have you found it easier to get funding for certain things, but not other areas? Has that been true? So yeah, let's open it up to kind of just general experiences in terms of fundraising, things that have worked, things that have challenged you. If you have questions for each other, just in terms of what might have worked or what might be getting in your way. Happy to just kind of open this up to a general funding discussion. Megan, were you going to share something or ask something?
I was going to share a few things. Yep. So Sustainable Medfield got its first money from the Grassroots Fund, which was good. Then we got a second batch of money from something Medfield's fortunate to have called the Medfield Foundation, which is they operate actually as a umbrella organization, and Sustainable Medfield's actually part of them for tax purposes. But they have a annual kind of grant request that we participated in. So we got some nice funding at the beginning of our start with them. We haven't been successful getting anything since then, but that was helpful. I don't know if you have any community organizations like that. I wanted to mention that just the other night, we held something that we called a solar social. This isn't going to help you raise money, but it made our program cost neutral. We had a social at a brewery, and we offered to pay for pizza for everybody. And we asked 3 solar vendors to attend. And we asked them to, would they each kick in $50 to $100 to be there? And I think when you're buying or when you're selling $30,000 solar systems, you can probably scrounge up $50 to $100. And it was funny because we really debated, should we ask them? Should we not ask them? I'm like, this is a drop in the bucket for them, right? And for us, like you've heard here, it's so much money, right? So anyway, we ended up getting about $250 for about $250 worth of pizza and expenses. We also got a $100 gift card from a grocery store. So we were able to buy cheese and crackers and desserts. So that was an event that we ended up not having to spend any money on, which was great. but of course, a little bit of effort to make that happen. And then, well, the last thing about Sustainable Medfield I wanted to ask about was actually, Rob, you mentioned you had approached some banks. And I'm just wondering if you've been successful in getting money from banks and how that's going for you.
Yes, we were successful, but we only approached one bank so far. And we had experience with that bank because we also used them for the local farmers market. So we knew the people and they were willing to help us out. They'll probably help us out again. We didn't go to a second bank yet, which we also have got good contacts with. So yeah.
Because if I understand it correctly, I think the banks at a certain size actually have an obligation to give money back to the community. So they
Right.
often have foundations to do that. So
Yeah.
we have,
Personally, I worked in the farmers market for a long time, many years, and I was the treasurer, and we were involved in fundraising every year, and it became quite a project, because you have to collect money every year to buy materials for the farmers market. So I don't really want to do that for this particular organization, but a little bit of money is needed just to get going every year.
Yeah, Karen.
Yeah, I hope this question doesn't take us off track, but like for groups that aren't 501c3s, I understand that you need to get an EIN number from the IRS in order to start a bank account for an organization. And I just wonder, like, how, if you guys have done that and how it's worked for you. Because we're thinking we might be able to fundraise through the Acton Climate Coalition. We tried the fiscal sponsor thing, but the one organization that was in a position to do that was not at all interested, or at least one of the gatekeepers was not interested. So
Ashland has an EIN. We don't have our funds at my personal bank accounts anymore. So we have an EIN. We're just a non-profit corporation, and that's simple enough. So
and it's under the name of Energize Ashland.
Right, Energize Ashland. Yeah.
Okay, David, do you folks have an EIN?
We do not, but it sounded like it was a fairly straightforward process to go to the town hall. And I wasn't sure it was the building commissioner or somebody like that. You could get something that you could take to your bank. But I'm fairly friendly with the Middlesex Savings Bank in my town, and they suggested if I wanted to open an account there, that was the process. So it's not, I've mostly just, when I've been able to get people to support our group, I've just had them write a check to MassEnergize and then send it on our behalf.
And we will do that for the community fees. There's a few communities who have their donors send money directly to us with a note to say this is for Eco-Natick or whatever the organization is. So that is something that we can and will certainly help you with. So if that's something you need our help with. Okay, any other questions or comments, suggestions, tips for others in the group? Susan, do you want to have something you'd like to share?
Yeah, well, I was a fundraiser for 30 years and I've done quite a bit of this stuff from, getting the big Mass Save grant and Empower grants to getting a couple of $100 from a local bank or a local Walmart. And, I'm curious what's on the handout that you guys have prepared at MassEnergize, because I don't want to just regurgitate, and I think you probably have some of the same ideas.
Well, if you, yeah, I don't have it in front of me, but I mean, we will send it out as a resource. But if you have just some highlights or some high level suggestions, for example, don't forget about your community banks or you know, the grassroots fund is a good place for people to go. You know, those kinds of, if you just have some tips, I'm sure people would be happy to hear
Yeah.
them.
Well, the Grassroots Foundation was, top of my mind. We've worked with them for years. But, and you guys have mentioned the local banks, especially the bigger banks that are more national will have a big process of applications, and it takes time, and it goes to New York or whatever. But if there's a local community bank, especially if it's somebody you do your own banking or your organization or some of your members do, you ask for an appointment and you find out. And this is where you'll get smaller grants, but it might be all you need to get things going. So banks are like that. Local Walmarts, local Kmarts, local Price Choppers, or whatever your food chain is in the area. Again, some of them have national competitions for large grants through their national office, but most of them will have, like someone just mentioned, you get a gift certificate for $100 and that pays for your hors d'oeuvres or your desserts. Or some of them will give out, cups and napkins with their logo on it to help you at an event that you're doing, so you don't have to buy a bunch of stuff. Or they may just give you a $25 gift certificate and you can get the cheese platter. And if you go to 2 or 3 of these supermarkets, sometimes you can get, the makings of what you need for a small event. Walmart and Kmart have local contributions. Again, sometimes it's just $25 or $50. And the applications aren't complicated, and they don't require you always to be a nonprofit officially. You just go saying, we're a community organization, we're trying to do this. And it's usually just a 1-page application, especially if it's for an event. They like to be part of events so they can put their label on the table, so to speak. So it's worth checking. Another thing is to think about women's groups or community groups or the PTO organization, any place where people are gathered, where you can get their ear for a few minutes and tell them what you're doing and ask for a contribution. A little bit adds up when if you don't need a lot. I mean, this is all insanity making. If you're looking for $5,000 or even $2,000, you might want to think differently about it. But if you just need a couple of $100 to pull off an event, a picnic or whatever, these kind of ideas. Also, sometimes local printing companies, if they're local and you talk to them and you say, we're doing this event and we need tickets or we need signs or whatever, they may offer to do $100 worth of printing for you that'll keep your costs down. And like someone just mentioned, you go to the solar vendors, the electric vehicle companies, and you tell them what you're doing, and you're having a gathering of their potential customers. And would they like to come and set up a table? And at the same time, to do that, you'd like them to kick in $100 or whatever for the event. So those are just the things that came off the top of my head. I also want to say that at the end of this year, I'm semi-retiring from the Mass Save program, and I'm going to have to keep working a little bit. So I'll want to do some consulting, but it may be that if there's a need or interest to do a little, 1-hour fundraising course or something, since I've been in this same field, there may be a way I can just talk to you about how you can research grants. I mean, community foundations that are local, Framingham has a good one, Worcester has a good one. And they will sometimes even act as fiscal sponsors for you. And they may not be willing to have you apply for one of their grants, but they may have ideas for you. Why don't you talk to so-and-so? They're very interested in the topic you're talking about. So there may be ways that we could meet for an hour or so, and I could put together a little tutorial or whatever that would open up the conversation between us, so I could share some of my experience that I'd be willing to offer to this group, because I've benefited so much from being with you all. this, but I got to finish up this year with Mass Save first. So come January, let's talk. But
Well, thank you, Susan.
Yeah.
It's a very generous offer and really appreciate those ideas. And I actually did not know that you had the background you did. I would have invited you to be our guest speaker tonight, but thank you for sharing. That's very kind of you, and it's very generous of your offer to spend some time, you know, in January after you're finished with your current responsibilities. So thank you very much, Susan. Really appreciate that.
I know it's challenging, you know, when it's almost easier. If you need a $10,000 grant, then you dig in, you go to the foundation library, you do some research, you find out, you hire a fundraiser or whatever. But when you just need a little bit here and there to make things go, so it's not all coming out of your own pocket.
Yeah.
You know, there's creative ways to go about it. You know, even if you're just getting a school club on your team and getting them to sell fudge, you know, or whatever. So I'd be happy to do that in the new year.
That's very generous. So thank you.
Yeah, sure.
So good. Yeah. Okay. So Tom, it looks like Tom, you've got your hand up, and maybe you've got something you'd like to share as well.
Sure. Hi, Nathan. Good evening, everybody. Susan, great offer. Wow. Very generous. Thank you. Nathan, just a quick tip that I've gotten recently from our director of finance for town committees that are trying to scrap together a couple $1,000. He recommended approaching the director of finance towards the end of the fiscal year and asking how the committee budgets are going with all the other committees in town. And he says almost every year there's some extra money in the pot. And don't be shy to ask for it, because it's one of those things that I'm pretty sure if they don't use it, they lose it.
They lose it. Okay, yeah. So that is not a tip I've heard before. I like that. So thank you. That's a good. So finding out what your town's fiscal year is, and I'm guessing most towns are on the same fiscal year. I would guess. I'm not sure. But then approaching what, like a month, you know, in the final month or something? Is that kind of your sense of it?
I don't even think you have to wait that long, but you know, start making sure you get to know your finance director.
Yeah, get to know your finance. Yeah, your town finance person. That's a good suggestion.
Yeah, and there, you know, there's money out there. You know, these budgets aren't down to the bone every year. At least Canton's isn't. That's where I live.
Yeah.
So just a hot tip for you.
Good. No, thank you. Thank you. All right. Well, we're getting towards the end of our meeting. So we still have another 15 minutes, but we do have a few announcements, a few other things we want to say. Are there anything else, it doesn't even have to do with fundraising right now. Any other questions, comments, concerns, something burning that's, you know, going on in your town that you'd love to get some input or thoughts or simply just to share? Yes, Ellen.
Sorry to ask this. Are we doing another conference next year?
Thank you for queued me up.
Yeah.
That was a perfect segue.
All right. So, but what I'll add to that is I would love to get our green team to get a trip to be able to go to the conference and learn more. When I saw the kids last year, our green team competes with Model UN, you know, and the Model UN kids are always going somewhere. And I think the green team would like to go somewhere. So I was thinking of MassEnergize.
Yes, we'd love to. So thank you. That was actually on my list of things to share. But Ellen, thank you for allowing me that segue. So yes, we are having our conference. The date is set. It will be the second annual Community Climate Leaders Conference on April 30th. It's a Wednesday, April 30th. So it's a little bit later in the month than we had the last one. And it will be at Bentley University. Last year we were at Brandeis. This year we're going to be at Bentley, April 30th. So we will be sending out kind of a save the date. But yes, Ellen, we'd love to have the green teams. And we are definitely going to be building in some more youth. I think the youth participation was very popular last year. So we'd love to do more with kind of youth participation. So yes, April 30th, 2025. Thank you. And thank you for that. Something else that we're going to be doing, and you'll hopefully be hearing about it somewhat soon, though we're not quite ready to release it. We are actually making also a call for proposals for workshops. So last year we kind of put together all the workshops, but this year we're opening it up to people who would like to propose workshops. So we are going to be putting out just a list for suggested workshops. If you'd like to propose something, we're happy to consider it. We can't promise, but we will certainly be considering kind of not exactly crowdsourced workshops, but specific workshops that people would like to offer. And if they fit into the workshop sessions, we will certainly entertain the idea of providing a forum for people to be workshop leaders. So stay posted about that as well. And yes, David, question, comment?
I was just trying to get my question. Am I muted? I hope not.
We can hear you.
Okay. I'm not looking at the meeting at the moment, but I'm looking at our town page, and we've tried going the Slack route at least a month ago about the take action sequencing, and we asked whether, or was it the testimonials? I'm sorry, it was the testimonials. So the testimonials, we used to be able to sequence according to what we thought was the most appropriate, and now they're sequencing based on the last testimonials show at the top and the oldest testimonials show at the bottom.
So David, if you don't mind, I'm going to actually ask you to connect with Talia. Talia, who's on our team. This is precisely what she's doing, is responding to community concerns about things on the platform and otherwise. So Brad may have something to say, but this is the perfect thing that that Talia is in fact tasked with doing. So, but Brad, do you want to respond quickly to just give David a suggestion or comment?
That sounds like a bug, which I wasn't aware of. So I'm glad to hear you say it. And Talia will come to me and I will go and get it fixed. So I'm going to take a note and let you know when that sounds like something that happened recently.
So
okay,
I guess related to that, should we no longer be posting bugs in the Slack channel when we come up with them? Because we're going to talk with Talia when we have our meeting with her next week, but there are other things that I was going to bring up, I guess, then.
Okay. I got a little behind. I'm checking that channel right now. And yeah. Post them in the Slack channel is the right thing to do.
Yeah, do keep posting them, Marissa.
So testimony order.
I last posted Saturday at 11:35 a.m. on this, but we're meeting with Talia actually on Thursday, so we will chat with her about it then as well.
Great. Yeah, and for the rest of you, if you're having trouble with your platform, if you have issues related to, kind of MassEnergize, Talia has been hired to exactly do this, which is, set up times with communities, but also be there as a resource to respond, to listen to if there's bugs in the software or otherwise. So please know that Talia this is, what she does, and she does it quite well. So we want to keep her busy. So please do reach out to Talia. Okay, well, we're kind of wrapping, getting towards the end of our time. I do want to just ask, besides the letting you know about the Community Climate Leaders Conference, I do also want to just ask, we're a fairly small group right now, but the next community practice meeting is scheduled to be it's going to fall on Veterans Day. Is that a problem? We did actually move this last October's meeting because of Indigenous Peoples Day. I don't know whether Veterans Day is that a problem? Does it matter? How do you feel? Is there anybody who would prefer not to have it on that Monday night and move it back because of Veterans Day? Is that a problem? Okay, David. Brad,
I
are
always
you-
have a conflict on the second Monday, so any opportunity to get away from the second Monday is great for me.
Okay, so your conflict is not Veterans Day, it's something else, but this would be a good reason to not have it. Okay, I hear that. I hear that.
Just a long weekend, so if people have been away, it might be.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, well, I think, I mean, I do hear maybe some people saying, yeah, they'd like to maybe move it back. I don't think that should be a problem. We don't want to bump up into Thanksgiving, but that's still the week before, a full week before the week of Thanksgiving. So the 21st, no, excuse me, the 18th would be. So, okay, well, I do hear a couple of requests to have it, moved back. I don't think, hopefully that's not a problem. Would moving it to the 18th pose a problem for anybody? Okay. Well, I think in that case, we will do that, honor the people who honor the veterans and honor the people who, have veterans in their families or otherwise and want to honor that day. Okay, then a few other things that I'll just these are more announcements and we'll put them in the follow-up notes. I don't think we need to have a conversation about them necessarily, but just a couple of announcements. Sustainable Middlesex, which some of you know as an organization, is putting together a resource guide of community climate actions. What they're trying to do is put together, the variety of actions that different communities can take as a resource. And they have, we'll include with our resources as we send out to Joe, a kind of a spreadsheet to just see if you are doing actions in your community. I mean, it's the kind of thing just to share ideas. For example, I mean, something that many of you do is, and we had a conversation about this, like the petting zoo. Okay, the petting zoo is something that communities do, and other communities might want to adopt that as well, or other kinds of actions. So what they're trying to do is compile kind of an exhaustive list just to make sure that those resources are out there for other communities as well. So we'll include that in a resource. Lexington is also trying to get ideas for communities that run successful home tours. Now, Acton, I did tell Ricky Papo, who asked me this question, and I said, oh, well, I think Karen would be able to help you. I don't know if Ricky reached out to you. She did. Okay, well, in that case, but if there's other communities that are running home tours, Ricky would, maybe, I don't know if Lexington's already done it or not, but she did make that request, and I said that I would make an announcement at the community of practice. And then finally, there's perhaps a topic for, and we'll be having for a future, probably the November community of practice. We recently had a conversation with the heat pump organization, the Laminar Collective, I think is what it's called. And they're doing a lot of work to promote heat pump and heat pump adoption. And so we've actually asked them to come and do a short presentation at the November community of practice, talking about kind of heat pumps, particularly at low income communities, because they're doing some very interesting work. But another thought that came about was that we've been talking about coaching programs, and as you know, Abode and Electrify America both have heat pump coaching. But one idea, and these are self-paced, self-administered, so kind of asynchronous courses, but somebody had the suggestion that a few people could get together and together take one of these asynchronous courses, so that you're not just doing it by yourself, but you're doing it kind of in community, and then being able to share and talk about responses and talk about different things that you've learned from the class. So we just wanted to add that as a suggestion. Anybody who is doing one of these self-paced heat pump coaching courses, or even home electrification courses, an idea was to do it along with somebody else. And we'd be happy to facilitate that if that's something that people wanted to do. So that's all I have as far as suggestions or comments or announcements. Are there any other announcements, things going on that people would like to share with the community?
Vote.
Vote, yes. Thank you very much. Please do vote.
And maybe pray.
Yes, yes, and a few prayers along with your vote. Yes, indeed. Thank you. Yes, and the next time we meet, we'll have had the election. I don't know if we'll have a result or not, but we will have had the election, and hopefully we'll have a positive result of the election to celebrate at next month's community practice meeting. So. Yeah, Karen, okay, yes, goodbye, everybody. Karen, were you going to say something, or are you just waving goodbye?
I just wanted to say, I mean, not to be super pessimistic, but a future community of practice theme might be resilience in the face of oppositional government, depending on the outcome of
Yes,
the
okay.
election.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, Karen, I think that would be great. I think that applies at various levels of government,
Mm-hmm.
right? Oppositional in your own town is oppositional as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. Okay, well, thank you, everybody. It's always great to see you. Thank you for joining us on this October evening. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and yes, please do vote and have all your friends vote, and especially people in the swing states, please have them vote. So, okay, good night, everybody.